In our series of previous videos, we've built this user interface complete with a dropdown that shows specimens that we have created, and we're able to store those specimens into Firebase, and we're able to update those specimens in Firebase as of the last video. The trick now is we don't have a good way to create a new specimen. So in this video, I'm going to add a new option to this dropdown or spinner that allows us to create a new specimen. And also I'm going to do a bit of refactoring that I've wanted to do for a little while. So let's jump right in and get started. First of all, one minor thing is that I have this selected specimen, which is whatever specimen we're currently working on, in my user interface activity class, and really state doesn't belong in our activity class. It belongs in the view model. So I'm going to cut this and I'm going to put it into our main view model. In doing so, I'm going to need to remove the private access modifier because I know I want to access this from my activity. Now, if I go to my activity, I'm going to find a few red lines where it's referring to that selected specimen. So I just need to add the view model as an implicit parameter to that specimen. And we're good. Next, I need to add a new entry to the dropdown. We see the dropdown right now has Eastern Redbud, Red Maple, and Western Juniper. I'm creating that list in my main view model in the listen to specimens function. And we'll see what we're doing here is we're listening to the collection of specimens on Firebase Cloud Firestore. And when we receive an update from Firebase Cloud Firestore, we iterate over that collection and we populate a new collection called All Specimens, which we're defining right here. And then we take that All Specimens collection and we assign it to the mutable live data type called specimens. So if we want to add a new record, we can do it right here where we're declaring our array list of specimens. I'll simply add kind of a dummy specimen here with the default plant name of new specimen. This is in our main view model, and we're going to want to test for this in our activity. It's a good idea to not duplicate strings. What I'd rather do is make some kind of a constant out of this. So I'm going to refactor, and we'll say property. And we'll say main view model, that's fine. And we will call this private val new specimen. But since we want to access this from our activity, let me remove the private modifier. I could make it internal, or I could just leave it at the default of public. Either way is fine. Also, this is kind of in a funny place. It's sitting here on line 32. Thank you for refactoring this, Android Studio, but let me move it to a more obvious place like the top of our main view model. A quick check of our logic. I've loaded the app, and note that the first thing that's going to come up is new specimen. When I click it, we essentially get a field of blanks, but the plant name is new specimen because that was my little hack to make this all work. I'd rather that not be there. So I'm going to go back to the activity in my drop-down menu. And this for each loop here is what populates that drop-down menu. So let's take a look at the specimen that we are iterating over, and let's look for the one that's called new specimen. Look closely at the construction here. We're iterating over the collection of specimens because we have a for each loop, and then we are defining our parameter here to be this object called specimen. So we can wrap a little if test around some of this. I'll start by saying if specimen.plantName equals, well, remember that constant we made in our main view model? We can access it right here and do an easy comparison. So if we're here, we have a new specimen. We've selected a new specimen. Otherwise, we have selected an existing specimen. Now, let's look at the logic below that was the same either way up until this point, and let's see what we can keep regardless of whether it's a new specimen or an existing specimen, and let's see what we have to do differently based on new versus existing. So first of all, expanded equals false. That's going to go in either condition, so let's go ahead and put that at the top before we even get to our if test. Now, specimen text equals specimen to string. That one's going to be particular to an existing specimen because a new specimen we haven't set any text in it just yet. Let's go ahead and set specimen text to nothing in the case of a new specimen. And by nothing, I mean empty string. ViewModel selected specimen. This one we definitely want for an existing specimen because we're saying we've picked this one from the dropdown. It's the one we want to use. Now for a new specimen, I had to think about this one for a second. For a new specimen, we actually are creating essentially an empty specimen here. And well, we could use that one as is, or we could actually create a new specimen object. I'm tempted to just use that one as is. So that's going to make things a little bit simpler because this falls into the category of it's going to be the same whether it's a new specimen or an existing specimen. Selected plant and in-plant name, those were particular to an existing specimen, and that's just a matter of when I updated it, I needed to remember the plant name. Well, for a new specimen, we have not yet selected a plant. So as it works out now, this is the logic that's going to happen for every specimen, whether it's new or updating existing. This is the logic for a new specimen, and this is the logic that's particular to an existing specimen. A couple other things I'm going to do to tidy up. First of all, we know that the plant name is going to be populated based on the plant name in our specimen object. So I'm actually going to move this line where we're assigning the specimen to our view model after the if test. And then if it's a new specimen, I'm going to go ahead and clear out that plant name. That way, when we select this specimen and it populates in our Jetpack Compose interface, it's not going to show anything in that plant name field, and we can simply type something into that plant name field. Now, I'll confess I spent many, many years as a Java developer, about 25 years, and I'm used to comparing strings with an equals method instead of the binary operator. But Android Studio is kind enough to let me know here that, hey, you know what? This can be replaced with a simple equals operator because we're Kotlin. There's one other thing that's unrelated that I want to do as well. In our Save button, we are passing the selected specimen to the view model, and we don't need to do that anymore because the view model already knows what the specimen is. So I'm going to update the Save function from Save and passing in a specimen object to simply Save Specimen. And then let's go to the view model, and we'll call the Save Specimen. And instead of Specimen, we will simply refactor everything to selected specimen. Just a bit cleaner to do it that way. Now let's redeploy and just confirm everything works. If I choose the Western Juniper, let me do a very simple change and we'll update the date planted to October 1986. And we see sure enough that updates in Firebase immediately with date planted of October 1986. Now let's choose new specimen and I'll put in plant name, Southern Catalpa, location, Eden Park, Cincinnati. Description, beautiful spring flowers. Date planted, May 1997. Let's see if we get a new specimen in Firebase. And sure enough, I just saw something new pop up, and there we go. May 1997, beautiful spring flowers, Eden Park, Cincinnati, Southern Catalpa, and specimen ID. Take a look at our dropdown. We have the new specimen option again. And we also have our Southern Catalpa option. And note I can click between these two and I can see them get populated. So actually that was fairly straightforward. Let's take a look in the debugger. I'll choose our Southern Catalpa and we'll take a look at the on click when it fires. Is the plant name equal to new specimen? Well, let's see. Plant name here is Southern Catalpa and we know that's not a new specimen. So I'll step over and we see it takes us into our else part. I'll update the planted date from May 1997 to May 1998, and now we see we're in the Save Specimen function of our view model, and notice that we're no longer passing in the specimen. We'll go ahead and let this continue. Take a look in Firebase, and we see the date planted is updated to May of 1998. Now let's go back and select New Specimen. We see specimens for each. We see that we are now in the on-click handler for this new specimen. Now is the plant name equal to new specimen? The constant. If we see it is new specimen, in view model new specimen is also new specimen, so we do have a match. So we empty out the plant name and we continue, and we have a blank canvas. So I can type in something like witch hazel. Okay, let's go with viburnum, that'll work. Location, Theodore Berry Park. Description, lovely shrub. Date planted March 2007. And save. As I say save, you see that our save specimen function is called again. We realize that this is a new specimen, so we generate a new document, and we will get a new document ID from that new document. And then we're going to save that to Firebase. Let's go ahead and let this continue. Back to Firebase and take a look at what we have. We have a new specimen with all of the details that we authored in our Jetpack Compose UI. So in this video, we've seen how to use a spinner or dropdown not only to see our existing records, but also to create a new record. As always, I hope this video was helpful, and I look forward to reading your comments. Thank you.